SummerSlam is this Sunday. It was going to be the Performance Center Slam. We could call it the ThunderSlam, but we have not seen the ThunderDome yet, so we'll just see. It's a working title in progress at this point. But SummerSlam is this Sunday. For the first time, a network event will happen in front of a crowd somewhat due to the ThunderDome. I've tried to stay away from looking at it and just seeing what it looks like live because I just don't want to spoil that moment and probably inevitable rage when it just looks like a fucking thing out of... Remember that fucking board game, Guess Who? That's what I'm thinking it'll look like. With all these screens and all these people on these screens. But, we'll see what happens. I'm probably right, but I don't know. Nonetheless, the first match does have some controversy due to a recent idiot doing what he had to do, and that's probably the only way I will describe him with the Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose situation that happened a couple days ago and was evolving, and thankfully this guy is held without bail and hopefully given the maximum sentence. It's just something that people just don't do. People just mentally don't do something like that. I mean, I don't know. But, nonetheless, we move on from that to hopefully see the culmination of something that's been going on for... And I feel for both of them. It's horrible. It's fucking horrible. But the show goes on, as we say, and Mandy Rose will face Sonya Deville in a hair versus hair match, something we have not seen since Molly Holly shaved her head, but after losing to Victoria at WrestleMania 20. I mean, we've seen hair versus hair matches before, but not women in hair versus hair matches. Hell, I shaved my fucking head because I didn't want to get a haircut in this fucking Corona era, and it's growing back decently. I think it's not terrible. I think. But the point is with that, it'll take a long time. Molly wore that wig for fucking years. So we'll see what happens here, and it's going to be different, for sure. It's the biggest match of their career by far, on one of the biggest stages of the year. I really don't know what happens here, especially, with the situation with Sonya, no one wins here. Because you go through that, and then you have to shave your head on live television, on live pay-per-view, on live Thunderdome, whatever you want to call it. Because I guess the Thunderdome is its own deal, where you sign up and I didn't do it, but you sign up and you do something, and you're there for a segment or whatever. I don't fucking know. But to go from that, and I'm not going to describe it because the news has gone enough of it, and it should be out there that people know exactly what I'm talking about here. But you go from that to potentially one of them going through a life-changing experience to then shaving their head bald. It's going to be different than what it would have been if this didn't happen. But as far as progression and as far as in the storyline, maybe Sonya wins, maybe Mandy wins. I'm going to pick Sonya just because I just feel bad for the girl. I mean, shit. It's just horrible. But, as we say, we move on to two more women's matches, as we're assuming this goes back-to-back. Asuka faces both the Raw Women's Champion and the SmackDown Women's Champion for both titles. Asuka, of course, beating Bayley to qualify for the Raw Women's title rematch against Sasha Banks. And now winning the tri-branded Battle Royal on SmackDown last week to face Bayley for her SmackDown Women's title. We don't know if these are back-to-back, which is assuming. There shouldn't be a break in between, but in case there is, Asuka has time to rest, and it happens. But could we see 2 belts Asuka? Or what? I don't even know what we would call her. But I don't know what we would call her if she won both belts. But, one of them has to lose their title. There's no way they can hold all the gold forever. There's no way that's possible. In a women's division that doesn't have many titles to begin with, it's not going to happen. But the question is, which one does she win? If not both. I'm just say Asuka wins both, but if anything, she would win the Raw Women's title back. Just because Banks is on SmackDown. Of course, with the tag titles, they can be on all brands, but with something happening next week on Payback, that may not last long either. But for the progression of the story of the implosion between Bayley and Banks, Asuka wins both titles, I feel. Next up for the Universal Championship, Braun Strowman faces The Fiend, and Braun is also bald. Believe it or not. Last week, he shaved his fucking head, and it's just, he looks different. He looks really different, and that's all I can say about it, because it's like, you don't expect that for a guy that has that big of a fucking beard. And mine's not that large, but compared to his, it's fucking dwarfed. It just looks weird on him without all that hair. But he faces The Fiend. We had the incredible swamp fight that basically had a murder, and had Alexa Bliss, his sister Abigail, and all this stuff in between. But I think The Fiend finally wins the Universal title back. And finally just becomes what he should be. But we are seeing a new Braun Strowman. I wouldn't be surprised if Braun won, but I'm thinking realistically here. Next up, the match we didn't have at SummerSlam, the last show, the fucking Horror Center show. We can't do those little spins off because they're not going to be on the Performance Center anymore, but, we'll always have those memories. Apollo Crews defends the right to be the face of America against MVP, the man that lost the title on Raw in a unification match after he won the title by forfeit. Because Crews had COVID. There's no way around it. And then he somehow recovered and won titles and unified them and got rid of the older belt. Ironically, the old United States Championship, the final belt in WWE that had a nameplate. Of course, after we had the logo belts, the penny belts, which became dime or nickel belts, depending on what you want to call them, and just having changeable side plates. That was the last belt to actually have a nameplate, believe it or not. And it's a weird thing because now we're going through the era of you can't put a nameplate on a belt anymore. You're just going to have to do the fucking side plates for some belts. Not all of them have them, but it's different. It's an end of an era that you don't really think about until it's gone. Of course, they have the old U.S. title in the picture, but they're going to be using the newer one, which I would have loved if it had the blue with the stars. That would have made the belt a lot better, but I still love the belt nonetheless. As far as I'm concerned, this ends the story. Apollo retains, and this is just MVP having one last match at SummerSlam. That's what I feel. And no, actually, there's more. I apologize. Because we have the debut, or the return, rather, of Dominic Mysterio to SummerSlam. Of course, Dominic had the legendary ladder match, the Where the Fuck Was Vicky ladder match for the custody of himself between Rey Mysterio and the late, great Eddie Guerrero. And it's crazy to think how much he's grown up since then. That was 2005. I think months before Eddie's death. And now, he's a fucking man. He's a fucking grown-ass man. He has his SummerSlam debut in his street fight against the Monday Night Messiah. And Rey Mysterio's father will be in his corner. it's different. I've said it a lot, but, this is a very special match. It all comes together with Dominic because we've literally seen him grow up in this business, and I can't think of any other way of him winning this match. There's no way. I just can't see it. Unless you continue the greater good, but what's the point? The greater good should be over at this point. It's just that simple. For the Raw Tag titles, Street Profits against Angel Garza and Andrade. Montez Ford was poisoned by Zelina Vega. We didn't know that until literally last week, or this week rather. And, this is just a match that happens. And Street Profits retain, I think? I don't know. I mean, Garza and Andrade deserve it, but I just don't know if they'll do it. And finally, the WWE Championship. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Orton, as we talked about during the NXT predictions, punted a 71-year-old man, a 2-time Hall of Famer, a 16-time world champion, and in my opinion, as well as many other people's opinions, the greatest wrestler to ever live, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, almost killing him in the process. Like we said with the Pat McAfee thing, the punt means something in our business. It's not just to get an extra point. It kills people. It ends careers. It shortens careers. You're literally doing a fucking PK, a fucking pride kick into someone's skull. And, of course, doing that Shawn Michaels this week. The only thing about Shawn Michaels I could say is it's good to see that the old man from Home Alone is still alive, but it just ruins my childhood looking at him now. Just ruins it. But either way, Randy Orton is a much different Randy Orton than we've ever seen. Probably the most callous, the most vicious Randy Orton we've ever seen. And I would not be surprised at all if Orton won the title, winning his 14th, I believe, world title. 2 away from Flair territory. And maybe 15, but I'm not 100% sure. But I feel like Drew can go a little longer. Drew could go possibly to Survivor Series and drop the belt, if we're talking realistically. But I don't know if it's going to happen. Either way, it'll be a great night, a great weekend of wrestling, a great night of wrestling, and a lot will happen over the next 48 hours, if not 72 hours with the Raw after SummerSlam. But it'll be just great to see what happens here.